Gaming Compute. What's up, guys? What is going on? Good morning. I am in interview season. Um, I'm enjoying myself though. I think, let's see. So, I wanted to talk about um some interview skills, but not like every single thing. Let me see which part I want to talk about. Well, I kind of wanted to talk about commission only roles. That's kind of more what I wanted to talk about. Um, they're slightly easy to um interview for. I mean, I can't. Mm, how do I say this? I can't confirm that people should be going out for commission only roles, but if you're already trying to work um and you want to gain skills in a field, commission only can be a good place to start because you get access to training, you get access to the field, you get access to the roles, you get access to networking. You could potentially have, like, if it works out well for you, you could have a network and recommendations. um I guess the only thing is, you're trading time for not a you're not trading time for a guaranteed paycheck. The way I see it is, if you're willing to trade the time for the training, that's how I look at it. If the training is worth getting trained through this commission only job for free, and then you can still take those skills and be able to say, hey, I worked in this field. I did work. Hopefully, you have metrics to show. But if you don't, even if you don't, you can say, I volunteered, I interned, however you want to word it. You're practically interning or volunteering for a site if you're commission only and you're not making money. That's how I see it. You are volunteering. You are doing the steps. You are putting in the work. You are um actually um making you're actually making the you're actually taking the steps and making the um like doing the plan and making the actual uh making the actual uh I don't know how else to say it. Like, you're kind of making the moves, taking the steps, learning the skills. I feel like commission only without a long term, without like a contract that's making you and like say, hey, we have to have you working like 40 hours a week. You have to be here in person. I would say if it's commission only, go remote as possible, hybrid if you can, but remote as possible. I I don't want to tell people what to do, but I would say I'd steer clear of things that maybe require licensing that's going to cost you money, or any kind of training that's going to cost you money, or any kind of, you'd have to decide if it's worth it for you to be in person doing training. I've talked to sites that want to do like 1 week, so maybe like, I don't know if it was like 7 days, but let's call it like for a 14-day or 15-day. I don't know. 15 days would be like 5 work weeks. Sorry, 3 work weeks would be 15 days if it's 5 days a week. Um, or 2 weeks of 7-day training, something like that. Or 2 weeks of in-person training, which is 10 days, 40 hours a week. Or 1 whole week, 7 whole days, but 40 hours during that week, something like that. Um, would that be worth it to you if you're not getting paid training? I mean, these are the things might ask myself. Would it be worth it for you? Um, like I'd almost treat it like class, like a class, like a course. That's how I see commission only work. You're treating it like a course. You're practicing the skills, or like an internship, like an unpaid internship, or like a practicum or volunteer work. You're putting in the time, you're putting in the effort. If you do great at the job and you get paid, then good. If you don't get paid, think of all the access you've had to training, all the access you've had to practicing the skills, all the access you've had to going into meetings with other staff, seeing how people, level up at different sites, seeing how people are online and they, um, talk about their experiences. If someone reaches out to me, I look through their LinkedIn. That's going to tell you a lot of what you need to know. I don't really have written out steps of what I'm talking about. I'm kind of freestyling this, and I think I'll see how you guys gravitate towards this topic, because it's something I'm passionate about. I'm passionate about employment. I'm passionate about side gigs, money, things like that. But the reason why I talk about these non-traditional types of work on this podcast is because nowadays it is harder for people to just get a job, one job that pays what you need to support yourself. If you've seen the latest, right now, today is April 15th of 2025. If you've seen the latest Caleb Hammer episode, let me see if he has another one out, just to make sure. He doesn't have one. Let me see. If you see the latest Caleb Hammer episode, that was released yesterday. It was, at this point, it was released April 14th of 2025. It was it's called "I Had to Kick This Dip Blank Off Financial Audit," and it just has a picture of a guy with kind of like, the thumbnail has a guy with like horns, and Caleb's kind of like sternly, angrily looking at this guy, and it says dumb bleep. Like, basically, the reason why I'm mentioning that episode. I listened to it yesterday, and it kind of gives a lot of insight into Los Angeles. People who live in cities like Los Angeles. I live in LA. People who live in places like Los Angeles, where the rent is sky high, where the cost of living is sky high. In this example, he was paying under $1,000 for rent, for his own apartment. I think maybe he shared the apartment with his girlfriend. I wasn't really clear on that. But I'm not talking about the episode for any other reason other than to say it gives an example of how the price, how much you need to be making in certain cities. And I like that this episode kind of confirmed a lot of what I was saying. I was like, yeah, when you're living in LA, you need to be making $40 an hour. And he kind of mentioned something. He's like, well, I don't really know anyone who's making $40 an hour. And I think he was making 26 or 27 an hour, 30 hours a week. But that's not enough to live on. The only reason he's able to live on it is because he's paying $900 something a month for rent. And he's in debt and stuff like that. But it's like, that part of his spending and things aside, he's basically I don't know. So it was in that episode you see him explaining how much you need to make. A lot of places, you can make in the mid-20s an hour, and live off of that. And in places like LA, if you're making like 20 an hour, like Caleb was looking through, the apartment prices, he was saying there are some places where it's just under 2,000 maybe, like you can find places like that under 2,000 a month, but for like a one bedroom usually you're expecting to pay like 2K. And that's exactly what I've been saying, and I'm like, finally somebody did the math and confirmed. And and just like the guy was saying, he was like, you know he doesn't know anyone who's making like 40 an hour necessarily. Like, you can get there, but it's like there are certain fields that might get you there, it seems like, more likely. But I'm noticing, say with these tech type fields, you can get there, but it's not like you can just be like, I want to work in IT, I want to work in help desk, I want to work in tech sales, I want to work in digital marketing, and just like either working for yourself or do these things. Just start working, and then automatically, like if I make that decision today, and it's Tuesday, and then tomorrow I'm working and making like 70, 80K annually, like that's not really how it looks. There's a process of going from when you know absolutely nothing. I mean, it helps, I would say, in this day and age. One of the most helpful things I would say that is going to be for millennials, Gen Z, and Gen Alpha is that, you know, we are, as a whole, kind of generally tech savvy. I feel like it has kind of backfired as well, because it's like people are like having internet addictions and things like that, where it's really hard to be disciplined to practice and study and learn and level up your skills. You really do have to have that method that a lot of YouTubers kind of talk about, or other people, where they're talking about having to get into that focused mode where you're just like zoned in. Text messages, you're not checking that, you're not texting your friends, you're not on Instagram, you're not on TikTok, your phone is elsewhere, and you are just zoned in. I mean, if you think about that, if you do that kind of level deep work for 4 hours, I don't know how long does it really take, but it's like, let's say it takes 4 hours, right? 4 hours of deep work, Monday, Wednesday, Friday, early in the morning. No one's bothering you. It's 6 o'clock in the morning. You do that till like 10 a.m. or even 5 o'clock in the morning. You do that till 9 a.m. Most of your friends are probably not texting you at 9 o'clock in the morning. They're probably maybe at 8, 9, maybe 7, 8, 9 in the morning. You might hear from somebody, but you're probably not hearing from anybody before 7 in the morning, at least with the people I know. The only people I hear from near 5 or 6 in the morning are East Coast people, and usually it's me reaching out to them. But yeah, I would say, for people that are having trouble getting, work, you could consider commission only work. I mean, I really can't recommend roommates to people just because I've had such a negative experience with it. It can be pretty toxic, and sometimes I've learned that the reason why certain places to rent might be so cheap is because the quality of the house isn't that good, or maybe the quality of the living situation isn't that good. You're paying low prices for that. And in retrospect, when I look back, I'm like, that wasn't the best for my physical and mental health. I learned a lot of lessons. It was good for my wallet. It was good for my lifestyle to be able to hang out and socialize the way I wanted, and build relationships with people, and do all kinds of fun stuff that I would not have been able to afford to do if I was paying, so much extra in rent. I wouldn't have been able to build up my retirement savings or other savings and investments so quickly. But was it worth those years living with all these, people that were just, they became a hassle in my life. But I learned a lot. It was a learning process, and it's something that I'm like, I'm not willing to go back to that. But it served its purpose for a time. The trade-off was worth it until it wasn't worth it. I stayed too long even when it wasn't worth it, and then eventually I hit a point where I was like, this is the last straw, and I did my part to try to resolve things as good as I could, and nobody else, well, everyone was on board, but the people in charge of the house were not on board with trying to make it like a civil space with like stricter boundaries. And I was like, well, if you don't want to have like basic boundaries of like, hey, let's not be loud at night at like 2, 3, 4, 5 in the morning. Let's not be screaming through the walls. Let's not be, doing all kinds of like crazy stuff that's like disruptive to other people that are just trying to work and live their life in peace. Like the people who are the least peaceful, I think, need to kind of like get on the level of the people who are more peaceful. The people who are messy need to be on the level of the cleaner people. It can't be the opposite way. We can't all just be like, okay, like everyone's just living their life now. Like there's certain people in the house that are living like just anything goes. Like it doesn't matter when I wake up or go to sleep. It doesn't matter when I work or don't work. It doesn't matter if I do or don't do drugs on certain days or certain times. It doesn't matter how those drugs affect me and how it affects me socially, or if I'm even able to pay my rent or whatever, or causing chaos with other people in the house and not following rules and not cleaning up after yourself and not being able to manage like a day-to-day kind of routine. That shouldn't fall on everyone else in the house, and now everyone else is being disrupted by the one or two people who can't really like manage their own selves. It's like we shouldn't have to deal with that, but they wanted to deal with it, so I left, and I was like, you guys can y'all can live however you want to live. I'm not living this way anymore. But I can't really tell people. I mean, it's an option to live with roommates, but I'm noticing, of course, if you want to live with roommates, you're not going to want to pay an arm and a leg to live with roommates. You want to pay less money, and if you're paying less money, usually you're paying less money because it's you're going to be paying less money because you're um uh yeah, there's a reason. Like if there's a high turnover of roommates moving out all the time, that's why you're paying a lot of money. Um if there's, you know, mold or, pests and things in the house, that's why you're paying less money. Or maybe it doesn't have heating, or maybe it doesn't have Wi-Fi, or like something where it's like it's not such a tasty, like it's not such a tasty deal. You'll pay low rent because there's something that's not going to be worth it to pay more, because it's lacking in some way. Usually, I don't know if I've ever come across a place that's like you're paying less rent and they're doing you a solid. Like if you find those places, good, but I would say you wouldn't look at it that way. Kind of like how nowadays Amazon, everything is cheap, but it's because it's like AliExpress stuff. Now the drop shippers, instead of being like third party on AliExpress, now they're third party on, as like Amazon merchants. And so yeah, we're getting more affordable products on Amazon now, but it's like I can't tell you how many times I've purchased something that I was like, this isn't good quality, but it's like it was $5, It was $5.99 before tax, like I got a cheap Bluetooth speaker. Some hobbies I've kind of gotten into, I've been able to purchase some really affordable tools. But it really does take a lot of time looking at reviews and kind of weighing, okay, like this one's like $5.99 versus other ones that are like $21.99 or $35.99, and it's like, I'll get the cheap one because I'm building skills and this is kind of new for me, so I don't want to dish out $35 at once. But maybe it breaks, or maybe it looks like it's been used. It's like I'm paying low price for what it is. It's cheap. Maybe the materials are cheap, or like, if it's an electronics product, maybe the wiring or it's just cheap, like cheaply put together, cheaply manufactured. But also it helps you kind of get your foot in the door to certain little things that you're maybe interested in doing. I've noticed it's kind of helpful for that. So I wouldn't really, I don't know. Like I would say what I'm seeing in society is people having to make decisions. You know, there's a graduating class coming up of 2025. You know, there's people graduating coming up soon. I don't know any of these people. Um, I don't know any of them. Like, I don't know anyone who's like 17, 18 years old right now. I might have some friends, nieces or nephews, or some friends' kids that might be that age, but I'm not connected with them. We're not like, um, they're part of communities that I'm in, but I don't like talk to them like that, right? At least not right now. But yeah, I that's just kind of how it is. But I've kind of forgot where I left off. I pressed pause. Um, but yeah, I pretty much think that, you know, people today, you know, who are graduating from high school, if it's still like it was when I was in high school, now this is like over 20 years ago now, you know, because I graduated high school in '02. Um, if it's still like it was when I was in high school, you can basically, um, uh, you can basically, um, see how things have changed. Like in my in my day and age, I mean, you could graduate high school. Um, I don't think I knew anyone who was like graduating, getting a job, and like moving out on their own necessarily. But I also live in like a different kind of more. You know, I was raised in more of like a suburb type of area. Um, I feel like I knew some people that did do that. You know, they get married, have kids. So they're like the people I knew who kind of got married or had partners young and had kids or like young families. A lot of them were able to kind of move out and get their own place, apartment or whatever. I never knew if their families helped them at all. I never knew anything like that. Like I never asked, but I did know a few people that maybe didn't go to college or anything. But most of the people I knew, once they graduated college, you know, they didn't even have to get a master's degree. Like I didn't really see most people I knew getting, you know, higher level of like college and university education past like a bachelor's. Um, I didn't really see that until maybe the crash after like 2008 or so. That's when a lot of my friends that were working right after their bachelor's programs, a lot of them had been working for some years. They had their apartments. They were kind of, some of them were married, some of them were dating. They were moving in with their partners or spouses, and they were able to just support themselves on one or two incomes. That was very common. That was super common. And this was, let's call it like 2007 and like sometime between 2002 2007. Because that's when I got out of high school 2002, got into college, and a lot of us graduated in 2002. And those people who got into college right away and graduated, let's say they graduated um, like 2006 or so, and a lot of them lived maybe in campus dorms or campus housing or like shared apartments near campuses, or lived at home and, you know, went like commuting to campus. Some people went community college, then transferred into like UCs, or like went to USC or like Loyola Marymount, or like some of the private schools, USC. And this is LA. Like I don't know other places. I know LA. So I've seen it in my lifetime just change. Um, and the shifts are kind of hard, you know. It's like you go from like it's within the time span that you're like usually working. on like one phase. And so it's like I saw people who maybe didn't finish college while everyone else was getting their bachelor's around 2007, around 2006, around 2008. There were people getting their bachelor's. The people who kind of lingered, that didn't finish school fast, the people who weren't getting it in like 4 or 5 years, you know, their track kind of changed because once 2008 hit, they weren't able to just be like, okay, I have my bachelor's now, let me go get work, because the economy was already crappy, the job market was already crappy. Like I said, that was the first time I started seeing EBT signs on like Jack in the Box, and like I don't even know if they take EBT, I don't know specifically, but there were a lot of places that I'd never seen signs that like we take EBT here. I started seeing those signs everywhere. Friends that I knew, were losing their jobs, but most of them that lost their jobs had a lot of experience because they'd already had a bachelor's, they'd already been working for at least 1 or 2 years, if not more, if they were interning before that while they were in school. They already had like a lot of the foundation built, and then they were just leveling up degrees. A lot of them luckily had savings and investments and other money, and so they were able to level up degrees and get more get their needs met faster, versus like if someone was just starting, like if someone was just graduating high school in 2008, that's different than someone who is newly established in a field, solid, was responsible with their money, and then at least during the couple years they were solid, working for full-time rates. Maybe they'd been having like a shorter term paid internship before that, but it's like they had a network, they had school networks, they had professional networks, they had job networks, they had just community networks, versus someone. I think the difference with someone who's kind of right out of high school is that if you don't have a network, it's kind of harder to get a foot in the door when the economy's not that great. I'm not saying you're like calling everybody, like, but what I've noticed with networks is it is at the least you get the ideas, like I have networks in a couple tech fields that I've been interested in after transitioning out from mental health. And when I kind of just tune into what they're saying and kind of go like, hey, let me check the Discord, let me check the team chats, let me check the WhatsApp. I don't really deal with WhatsApp like that, but like, let me check the LinkedIns, let me check, let me just check these networks of people. I'm kind of able to tell that they have methods that they're trying, and you can kind of see like, oh, I tried that method, it didn't work, and you can kind of chime in and say your experience, because maybe you did that already. Or maybe you see other, like I've seen some people who, if they're not able to intern or get like volunteer work, they're able to kind of find certain programs that are maybe an automated system, like a simulated system where you can train yourself, and you basically it's like a class almost, but it's like a simulated class where it's like you're practicing the skills. Maybe it's like programming, and it's like walking you through like a GitHub, building up your GitHub, building up your portfolio, and you're kind of like walking through it with these people, with these, maybe not people, but like you're walking through it with the process of how it all is. You're basically walking through it all on your own. You're self-training, you're being self-taught, but you might still at the end of the day have metrics to show for it, even if you're not building like a community or network of people, even if they're online people, even if you're not building like a network of these people, you're still, connected to communities. You're still building skills, you're still using skills, you're still tracking how much you're developing your skills, and then when you come into job interviews, you can actually talk about what you're doing. It's very clear that you can say, "Hey, I've been doing this. I can show you. I've got printouts and PDFs and things that I can add. I've been taking these certifications from like Google or LinkedIn or like whatever these sites are that have the classes. I've learned these skills. Hey, look at my portfolio. I built this website or have this GitHub that shows what I've been able to do, and I can do this in IT. I know how to do these kind of skills. Look, I built this. I designed and built this whole thing. I created this Discord community." Like, you don't have to necessarily be only relying on the degree or your high school diploma or your GED or whatever certifications or whatever licensing. Like, you have work to show for it, and you have a network of people that you can bounce ideas off of. Like, I'd say that don't discount that. Don't say that that's not anything. Like, I think that's a route to take. That traditional route it has changed. The traditional route of, I'm going to graduate high school at 17, 18, get a job. Like, you can get a job, but get a job right out of high school, move out of my family's house and not have roommates and get a place. I mean, that's way more rare now. That doesn't look exactly the same. You're going to be doing something else. You're not going to be doing exactly that. Likely. Some places, some areas you can do that. Some places you cannot do that. And so you don't want to, not be able to do that kind of thing. You want to be able to have, work to show. You want to be able to show that you're competent. You don't want to spend a lot of money doing it. You don't want to spend a lot of distance, like time out of like transportation doing it, Maybe if it's worth it. I mean, if the payoff is worth the effort of working for free or training for free, I'd say do it. That's individual. That's a personal preference. It's individual. Like, what's worth it to me might not be worth it to you. Some people aren't willing to waste even one day to do like a whole like 8-hour, online course or something, or do something over a weekend if they're not going to get paid for it. But then it's like they'd rather wait 4 or 5 months to get that one interview that might get you a job versus every weekend doing some kind of like 8 hours worth of something that's not going to pay you, but in that process you're kind of like gaining skills or like improving something, like you're building in the background. Some people don't want to put in any of that effort if they're not getting paid. I'm kind of opposite, just because I've been through so much school, and I've I was even like trying to get a doctorate, and it's like the program I was in, there wasn't really a way to be like making money. Like, if you were making money, you were maybe working for the campus, and it was going back into your student bills, and then maybe some living expenses money would come back to you, but it wasn't something you could really like pay your bills with. It wasn't like full-time income, and the course structure was so intensive that between the amount of time you had for like a 20 to 24 hour practicum per week, non-paid, so you're already working part-time, not paid, I was lucky to get like a $100 or $200 a month stipend, which at that time covered all my gas for the month. But most people didn't even get a stipend, so they were completely working for free. I was what else was I doing during that time? Going to courses, I had class. I don't remember how many hours I was in class, but a lot. Like, our classes were about 3 hours each. So if you took, the way they were lined up is if you took 3 classes a day, there were usually certain times, like a morning class, an afternoon class, an evening class. There were people that would be there from about 9 a.m. to about 9 p.m. That would be a full day, and you've only done 3 classes. You might have those breaks between and stuff, but that was common. And then you were working your practicum, so you'd have usually like a couple days where you're doing that, and then you'd have dissertation meetings for your group, your dissertation group meetings. Maybe minimum once a week for like maybe 2 hours, 3 hours, and they were probably at night because everyone had classes. So sometimes they were like from like a 6 p.m. to 9 p.m. or like a noon to 3 or noon to 2, or like early morning like a 7 a.m. to 9 a.m. or like they'd have to make them so that people could kind of like work around their practicums. So you usually have like an option to go to dissertation group, and then you're supposed to meet with your chair once a week. You're submitting work to them once a week. And then you had your coursework and assignments for every course. Projects. And it's like, realistically, when are you going to work? Like, when is there time to work? Like, this program wasn't built for people who don't have money. Or who don't want to take on a lot of debt. And back then, when you would get grad school loans, like, you could get grad plus loans and just keep taking them out. Like, I don't know how it is now, but like back then you could just be like, I just need the loans. I just max out every term, just like max out the loans. Like, nobody was questioning it. I don't know. We didn't really have to have like people signing off on our stuff. We didn't have to have like some Parent Plus or anything like that. We didn't have to have a co-signer, nothing. And you just be like, sign this paper at the office that you want the loan, and then you get it. And then once your bills are paid for school, they give you the balance and they deposit it to your account. And then you have a few $1,000s to spend over however many weeks. I don't know how much money it was. I don't remember off the top of my head, but it was thousands of dollars. And you'd basically just have to divvy it up and be like, okay, here's my rent, here's how much I'm going to pay for food. If you run out of money, you got to figure it out. It was enough that you shouldn't run out of money. Like, if you were responsible, it was enough to cover shared rent, groceries, car expenses. If you're maybe having a lot of car repairs or going out partying a lot or taking trips and doing a bunch of other stuff, or had a lot of other debt, credit card debt and stuff where money was coming out, it might not be enough to cover that, but it was enough to cover basics and then some. Like, you still had some money to go out to restaurants and stuff. It wasn't, I'm not saying that's what the loans were for, but it's like, you know, if you want to just like socialize a little bit and stuff, like get to know your cohort and like go out and do stuff together, sometimes, you know, there was money for that. Like they weren't leaving us broke. Like, we were able to kind of do that, but it was loans. It wasn't, you know, this program didn't have fellowships. It didn't have, like, you could maybe work in the library, work as a TA, work in the student center as like a tutor or something like that. Like, those were pretty common types of jobs that you could get. Like, if you did, like, I can't remember what it was called, work study, something like that. But I don't want to talk about this stuff like I know how it is now, because I don't know how it is now, because I'm not in school right now. Like that. Like, I'm in classes sometimes, but I'm not in that kind of school. I'm not doing that. So that's mostly how it is for me. I That's mostly how it's been, how I've kind of been able to talk about it. Um, um, but yeah, getting back to talking about commission only work, I mean, the reason why I think it's valuable is because it is one method of getting training and potentially making money. I wouldn't say depend on it as your full-time 40-hour a week job. You probably don't get benefits. You have to be careful with how much you do make, because if you do get certain kind of healthcare insurance, or if you are getting EBT or something like that, it could push you past the amount that you're supposed to be making. Um, it could push you past that amount. So, but for me, I feel like if you have Uber available to you, if you have maybe like freelancing available to you or some other kind of gig where you can kind of get by and you know that you have ways that you can make income, I feel like commission only is worth it if you're not coming out of pocket for a lot of stuff, and if they're not limiting your earning potential on the gig side of work that you do. I feel like that's where it can be worth it. Or if you're studying, or if you're working part-time elsewhere, you know, for pay, you're working 20 hours a week, it might be worth it to like get into another field that way, using a commission only structured job to kind of gain the skills, see if you can do it, you know, get access to some personal metrics where you can say like, this is what I did, you know, I had this many clients at this, I don't know what kind of job it would be, but a lot of it's sales. But if it's not sales, if it's like, I don't know, it's usually going to be some sales related thing. um but if it's not sales related, you know, you still have a way of like tracking what productivity would look like, and you can kind of see how other people are doing it. And especially if it's in a field that you're already studying in school, or that you have studied but you're just trying to get hired, or even if it's in like IT or something like that, you know, it's like you can kind of build the skills through these types of programs. I would recommend it, especially if there's not a contract that's like holding you to it for like a certain amount of time, where they're like, oh, you have to like do this, or you can't. I mean, I don't mind if it says you can't share this private information, this inside company information or whatever, uh, that like you're legally obligated to kind of like not share that. I would understand that, but you know, I wouldn't want to sign a contract that says I can't work elsewhere, or that says I have to work however many hours a week, or, you know, I'd want it to be as flexible as possible. Or if it says you have to make this many sales, or you have to meet this many people in person, or you have to make this many calls a week, you know, you kind of want it to be on your own terms, but also not something that you're going to want to put down for like 3-4 weeks at a time every month and just be like, I only want to do it like 3 days a month. Like, you want to have it be something that you want to do at least multiple times a week, to kind of build the schedule around it, and be able to kind of have a part-time flow, and get your foot in the door that way, and then go from there. And you know, see what skills you already have. I mean, if you're already studying in that field, or already have studied or got a certification or a degree, you probably already know. You know, you've probably already shadowed someone or heard someone talk about what their day to day is, or you could even, you know, subscribe to a lot of people on YouTube that are in the field that are like, hey, day in the life of an IT help desk professional, day in the life of a service rep, day in the life of a real estate agent, day in the life of a car salesperson, day in the life of a, you know, whatever it is, you know, day in the life, you know, of a person. You can do the day in the life, kind of like see what it looks like, and try to make it so that you're mimicking what they're doing, and then adjusting it to see like if you make money. If you don't make money, you don't make money, you know. But if you do make money, you know, at least hopefully it's lucrative and good enough for you to be able to support yourself. The structures might be worth it. You want to kind of do the number, do the math, see if the time is going to be worth your effort. If it's a job that's getting you leads, see what kind of leads, see what kind of leads they provide. you know, if you can find your own leads, sometimes what you can do, if you're doing commission only, you can almost build your own freelance site, your own freelance job on top of what you're already doing. Like, unless it's something like life insurance or something where you need like a license to do it. But if it's some like digital marketing thing, um, you can do the commission only work for them, and then you can, like, I've seen people set up full entire Discord that they set up as like internship programs, and people can get, you know, the highest people connected that are doing that work can basically get um a reference letter, a recommendation letter, or, you know, be able to put it on their resume. um and they've basically built their whole brand from scratch by basically having other people who are trying to get in the field doing free work for them. And Acadium is a site like that, but I've seen people not even use Acadium and they just do it on Discord, and they're like, who can find, you know, qualified leads, you know, who can find us, you know, submit 10, like, say if it's in the niche of like physical fitness and like personal training, and like this person is building a personal training brand, where they are a personal trainer, but then they also they outsource personal trainers. Like, maybe they need a yoga person, maybe they need a capoeira person, maybe they need like a water aerobics person, maybe they need a surfer instructor. I'm just thinking of stuff that would happen in LA. And say if you have all these kind of sport and athletic people that kind of like just have their own classes at the beaches and parks, like, you see that out here all the time. You know, these are public spaces. You can just get together and do your thing, like provide equipment like yoga mats and a yoga block, or like some water, snacks, if you're, you know, if you're able to, you know, afford it, like just investing some of the money back into it. But provide this kind of stuff. And yeah, you're gonna be able to do that. And um yeah, if you're able to kind of just like I've seen people do that. They've basically gone on, you know, Discord and been like, "Hey, we're a physical fitness internship," or whatever they want to call it. You volunteer for us and you can put it on your resume. And then they say, you know, I need you to find 10 LinkedIn sites. The LinkedIn sites need to have, I'm just making this up, they need to have 10K followers. They need to be within the last 2 years. They need to have a link tree set up where they have a pay structure, and they need to be charging 25 to 40 an hour for their services. I need you to find me 10 of them that are yoga, 10 of them that are karate, 10 of them that are kung fu sansu, 10 of them that are surfing, you know, and you know, they have like 50 people finding them all these places. You know, I want you to find that many on Instagram. I want you to find these people on TikTok. This is what the criteria is for the people I want you to find on TikTok. I want you to find them on LinkedIn. This is the criteria. And then they have another side that you could do for the, in quotes, maybe internship. You know, cold call these people. Like, make a Loom video that cold calls out to these people, saying, you know, seeing what their sites have, what their site is lacking. Maybe there's like a checklist, and you kind of go through it in the Loom video and screen share and say, hey, I noticed your Linktree only has like a YouTube and a Venmo. But did you know that, like, since you're creating content on LinkedIn, or if you're creating content on Instagram, we can set you up on these other platforms. And so we offer this package that you can purchase, and here it is, and this is what, you know, this is what you would buy, you know. Um, and you're doing that for free. You can be on the end where you're doing it for free. You can be on the end where you're the one who's built this out. You'd have to be organized with it. But imagine how far you could scale your own company, your own digital marketing company, if you were able to basically stick within a niche, have people working for you for free that are finding these leads, that are contacting these leads, that are landing appointments with these leads, that are actually making the TikTok accounts, that are actually making the YouTube video edits, that are actually making the ads for Facebook, that are actually making, that are actually tracking the Google Analytics. Like, you have all these other people doing this free work, and then eventually it builds up to where there's income, and then you basically take that income and you can reinvest it in the site. Maybe you can hire some people because you can't do all that by yourself. But now you have a company, and it takes a lot of organizing. It's easy to just like talk it through, but I've seen people do this. I've seen people literally. I don't know how long it took them to scale, but I've seen people do this. I've seen people. I've used this type of method, like, and it just takes a lot of being organized. And it's like, if you got to shut down shop, these people aren't getting paid. They're not your employees. Basically, you just send them all an email that's like, here's the contact information. You know, save in a Google Drive link your proof of work, and or maybe you have a Google Drive, that has like spreadsheets that has their proof of work, and you basically can have that they get something on their end because they have proof of their work. They have metrics to show. And then you, on your end, potentially have clients, and you're getting money from these people who are paying for your services and your expertise. Um, that is not something that's impossible to build. It takes a lot of diligence. It takes a lot of effort. It takes a lot of structure and organization, and it's something you really have to commit to. And the faster it builds, you need more people to kind of like manage it all. But I mean, I've done it. I've seen other people do it even at a higher scale than me. Like, there's a certain point where I'm like, I can't really manage this anymore. And that for me is what's hard with like freelancing, is that I'm pretty limited. Um, I can be pretty limited in my freelancing. Um, I'm not always limited, but I can be pretty limited. Um, but yeah, like you can basically build from there. Like, I'm not even talking in detail of what this looks like, but um, that's just generally how it looks. Like, if you take any company or any site and any program and see what they do, you can basically get it built out for free, um, in exchange for giving a recommendation letter, in exchange for someone being able to say, "Hey, I put this effort and that effort in. Hey, I'm one of the board leaders. I'm on the leaderboards for for these consecutive weeks. Like, maybe you have like a posting of like who's generating the most high quality work. I mean, it's a lot to keep track of, and you probably have to have a limit. You kind of have to know your own limits and be like, it's filling up, or if people aren't really doing their job, you'd be like, you kind of have to boot them and be like, you didn't do any work for the last 3 weeks. um but it's really not impossible, guys. It's not impossible. And if it fails, it fails. It's like, you know if you didn't make any money, you didn't make any money. Maybe there's something wrong with your methods. But even if you can build all that, even with just like a volunteer system where people are getting a lot out of it and they're able to put in the work, and even if your company goes nowhere and you're having people able to put in the work for you, um, I mean, that's definitely worth it. Um, but it's hard to like explain without like showing it on screen. But I really think it's worth kind of learning about that kind of thing. These days it is good to still stick to the old school methods of, if you want to go to school, if you want to get a degree, I'm not knocking that and saying don't do it, it's too old, doesn't work. um I don't know for sure that that's that would be 100% true. um but yeah, it could be worth it. It could be worth it. So I don't know. I I think that's a good place to start thinking. Uh, Life insurance sales is one of those things. It can be lucrative, but it and so like real estate as well. But it can take a while to build in those areas. It's not free to the person trying to do it. There are exams and things involved where you have to pay money. Sometimes the companies will pay for you. There are companies that exist that will pay for all that for you, but it's not like something so self-paced, fast-paced that you could do it yourself. I would say if you're doing certification programs, which I can definitely vouch for those programs. Oh, sorry, street sweeping. I can vouch for those programs, but I would say if you're doing those kind of programs, um, the thing that you won't have on your side that you would have on your side if you were in a traditional school, you might not have. Well, you probably would have projects that were provided by the courses. But what you would want to do is take those projects and build on them, or put them in a niche that you're more interested in and build those out, fully build them out like you would at an actual job. Now this stuff, I mean, it's free work. I feel like that's what separates the current time period from how life used to look back in the olden days. I'm calling it the olden days, like pre-pandemic is olden days. Like those methods are not the same. Career methods are not the same. Like I can't tell you, I don't even know what I would do if I didn't have like a solid LinkedIn. Build it out past 500 people. Sometimes, use the sales navigator, get it. Learn it a little bit first. Learn what you're going to use it for. Get it when it's free. Get a free trial. Cancel that free trial right when you order it so they don't charge you like $60 to $80 because you're going to forget after 30 days. Cancel it right away before you do anything else. That's what I do. I get free trials and then I just cancel them right away. And then you still have the 30 days left. Get it, cancel it, then continue using it. And they also have these other courses that you can get for like 20 something bucks. Like the last time I talked about that LinkedIn digital marketing manager, and how she kind of worked her way up, what job she had, how she was interning, and kind of leveraged LinkedIn courses and certifications to get her foot in the door at LinkedIn. It seems like it took her 6 months. 6 months while she was working like these other jobs. She was working like, I can't remember, but it seems like it was in like the food industry type of work, like maybe like bartending, maybe like working at like as a waiter. Gosh, it was the trash truck. The sounds of the trash truck. Driving down the highway. But that's what it looks like, Like, I'd say don't be afraid to try to do that. Build your resume, build your, skills. Have a lot to show for the time that you might not have the job that you want. Because you're going to look back and be like, if somebody's like, you've been out of school for 2 years, you haven't had a job, or you've been working part-time at like In-N-Out or something, which is great, but it's like maybe you're trying to get up into management at something like that, which would be great. That's decent pay. Or McDonald's, I mean, everybody like craps on McDonald's, but dude, McDonald's is like decent. Like they pay okay. You know, for someone with zero experience to be able to get like 18, 19 something an hour, you know, with benefits. I mean, yeah, it's not like the wage that you necessarily want, but it's higher than minimum wage, and it's, you know, you can work your way up from there. There is upward mobility available. Um, you know, you could, I don't know, I'm not gonna like speculate where you could go with that, but even if you did just get into management as a person working at McDonald's that works in management, that's not a bad deal. It might take you like a few years to get there. You might have to do some trainings and some courses, and yeah, it's, you know, maybe they'll pay for it, maybe they won't. But if you learn to be good with your money, set money aside, if you learn to work gigs when you don't have that like solid income, you just always have some gigs on the side that you can do, you know, that you know can make at least, you can pay for your basics. If you're not subscribed to Netflix and you're not like subscribed to all this other stuff, and maybe you're not going out on the weekends, and maybe you're buying like groceries that are at the most affordable prices, and no like Instacart deliveries, and no Uber Eats or, you know, Grubhub orders, and you're just basically sitting there grinding and doing your work and taking care of your health and not having any luxuries, but you can live off of gig work. It's not impossible to live off of it. It might be hard to live comfortably, and it's a little stressful because you don't have that solid like predictable income, but it's not no money. You know, you're not gonna not be making money. So I don't know. I would say it's something you can do. It's fairly it's fairly lucrative as far as what it is, like for the freedom that it offers you to be able to study and work elsewhere, or to train and work elsewhere. You're not really gonna get that in too many other types of jobs. Um, and it is money. You can make regular money doing it, but it is more like extra money. That's kind of how I treat it. It's more like, okay, if you want to do extra stuff and go to concerts or do extra stuff and like buy extra little things, then maybe that's where something like Uber Eats comes into play. Or like I was saying, those like apartment viewings and stuff like that. Like you wouldn't want to be like, I'm quitting my job and doing this to pay my rent. Like that wouldn't really, I mean, you could potentially do that, but it would be so stressful. And you'd be working more than 40 hours a week, and it might not be worth it to you, but you could do that. You could do it. It's possible. But I would say if you're going to try to do training and work commission only and, you know, hustle that way, you know, at the very least, you're gaining skills. You're working at a site. You have a contract. You're, you know, working for someone. You can get a reference letter. You know, you can learn the ins and outs, and even if other companies can't hire you, you can basically recreate within your own a niche that you like. You can basically recreate that structure, and then provide commission only work to other people. Technically, you could provide commission only work to other people, and you know, you might even be able to outsource some of your commission only work. It kind of depends on what you're doing, but you might. I mean, I'm not saying do that. It might be, they might not let you. It might not be allowed. But if there's nothing in a contract that forbids it, you can. I'm not saying do shady stuff, but like you can make some things work if you're creative. You know, it's just, you know, if you're only relying on degrees, or if you're only relying on, you know, putting in Indeed applications and like I don't hear back from anybody. It's like, yeah, these people are just getting like hundreds of thousands of applications. Some of these sites literally, like ZipRecruiter and some sites, they literally just want to sell your information to other companies. They're not even like, yeah, maybe the jobs are posted, but like you're gonna hear more back from places that you got your information sold to. You're gonna start getting emails and text messages from those people more than you're gonna hear back from the actual jobs that you applied for. And like at the end of the day, it's like that's not worth it. That's not gonna be worth your energy. But like, you can definitely make it work though. You know, if you just stay solid with things. Like I was saying, like if you have fields where there are recruiters or talent acquisition or people who their job is to reach out to you, if you're involved with this, with that way of finding jobs, I'm not saying don't do the classic applications, but you've got to find a way to stand out. And using recruiters is one way to stand out. Going on coaching calls and listening to the coaching call, reaching out to the coaches, developing a network of the people who went with that coach, that's one way to do it. You can have accountability partners with people. And yeah, you can have accountability partners, and you know, it's you know, you can create an accountability group. You can create your own communities and networks. You can really do a lot on your own. You know, it's not going to take you. It doesn't have to take you too much to try to do things independently, and to still be able to, you know, get the jobs you want and do the things you want, and you know, have, you know, those fun experiences that you're really involved in, and enjoy yourself, you know. And you know, some of these job roles, you know, like, it's low commitment on your end, you know. It's like you don't really have to commit to too much. And you can just be a go-getter, and if it's not working out, or if it's really bumming you out to a certain point, you know, you don't want to invest so much time and energy that you can't put time and energy into other stuff. But if it's worth it to invest time and energy, even to the point where you're creating content, if that's all it is, you know, you're trying to get work in a certain niche or a certain field, and you're just creating content around the process of how you got a foot in the door and how you started making money, people want to hear that. People want to know what's a method that works, because people are tired of just applying to jobs online. And I'm not here to talk about, like, I'm not here to BS people. Like, I know that I ramble and I'm not super organized. I just, you know, I had time after this phone call this morning, and I'm still in the car because I took the call outside, because I feel like it was a lot calmer outside. Like, I was like, I don't know if someone's gonna come knocking on my door or whatever. Let me just come outside, take this call real quick, and then I just hit record and started recording this podcast episode, because I'm like, well, I just want to stay outside for a couple hours and just, like, chill out here and just relax in the sunshine and just, like, you know, get some fresh air without going anywhere. I'm not spending money to go anyplace. I'm just chilling in the car. But that's kind of how I'm choosing to spend my morning. And, you know, I'm not any person who I would say, hey, like, follow all the methods that I talk about. I'm just throwing ideas out there. I'm helping you brainstorm. But at the moment, the neighbors' gardeners are about to pull up. So I'm about to be done out here because it's about to get super noisy. So I'm going to go inside, get some lunch, chill. I didn't sleep good, might get a little rest, and I've got some creative tasks I need to do for the rest of my afternoon. But that's my day. But I hope you guys enjoyed this episode, and thanks so much for listening.